And we are live. Guys, I'd like to welcome everybody to a very special edition of the Let's Talk Fishing Video Podcast. My name is Jay Angel. I'm going to be your podcaster for this evening. And the guy I have on tonight was one of my first ever guests back when I had the audio podcast, a guy who makes some fantastic soft plastic lures called the Matrix Shad. I have caught so many fish on Matrix Shad. Such a good. Anyways, without further ado, I give you Chaz Champagne. How you doing tonight, Chaz?
Good evening. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. It's an honor to have you on. Like I said, thank you so much for believing in me when I only had like 6 podcasts under my belt. Now I have like almost 2,000.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's been 5 years since I've talked to you. Welcome back to the show, sir.
All right. Good to be back.
Thank you. First thing, man, Chaz and I were talking before the show. He can like see Lake Pontchartrain from his house, which is a dream come true, man. What a great place to live. What a great place to, because you said you can just grab your boat and just go for like an hour and a half sometimes.
Yeah. So right now we're shooting this in the office. You can see the boxes behind and all. We run this whole business out of our house, and this is the office. And you can't see it from the angle the computer's at now, but the best view in the house is right here. This is the second floor, and that window overlooks the entire Lake Pontchartrain. So some days when it's breezy and I'm not exactly sure how breezy and I don't know if I want to go in the lake or not, I'll come walk up here and look out the window, and I can see how big the crest of the wave is or exactly what direction the waves are coming from, and make a final decision. Do I feel like going fishing or not?
Wow. Geez. Yeah, if I want to go saltwater fishing, I have to drive 2.5 hours or 1.5 hours to where you live.
Yeah, so it makes it nice, just slipping out there. If I don't catch anything or the weather's bad or whatever, I just turn around and come home. No big deal. If I had to drive on the trailer for an hour and you spend 6 hours fishing and really struggle, it's kind of frustrating,
That does get frustrating, but still it's better than watching television.
Sure. Or going to work.
Yeah. but that is your work.
Yeah, for me that is work. Yeah. There's days where I go out when I really don't.
Every time you fish, it's.
What's that?
Wow. I said, wow. First thing I'd like to talk to you about is the use of popping corks and Matrix Shad. Now, of course, I just got told that I have this Matrix Shad on upside down, 50 years of freaking fishing, and I can't get a swim bait on right.
Well, like I told you,
just so you know, guys.
Yeah.
Look at that picture. Look at that picture right there. That's a proper rigging of this.
Yeah, right there. It shows you where the hook comes out. That's where you want the hook to come out, is right there. It shows you on the bag. And that's going to be on the flat part of the lure right here. So the hook comes out the flat part. It's going to work fine if you come out the belly. It's not like the fish won't bite it. It's just, it makes it more user friendly and easier for the angler to thread the jig head on. And when it, keep it running, the lure running straight. It's more of a streamlined motion. But speaking
now,
of
what color did you just have on? Did you just show us there?
That was Green Hornet right here, which is that's an avocado top.
Green Hornet
with a sparkle belly. Yep, Green Hornets. It's not our number one seller. I think it's number 2. I'm trying to find.
Let me guess, Shrimp Creole.
No, Lemonhead is our number 1 seller, believe it or not.
Lemonheads. Okay. Now, Lloyd Landry just checked in. He said, best baits in the business, been making a living and supporting my family with his baits for years. Shad is the man. That's Lloyd Landry.
Okay, cool. Yep. Hello, Lloyd.
And also Gary Bourne. Gary Bourne Jr. says his favorite matrix shad is shrimp Creole.
Yep, that's probably number 3. You got those right here.
And this is something that Lloyd Landry gave me, this shrimp Creole. I just want to show you guys what it looks like. Look at, that color right there, that's very interesting because I used a color very similar to that up in the Great Lakes for smallmouth bass. And it was very, very productive for smallmouth. And I'm talking freaking smallmouth bass that were freaking studs,
Yeah.
We caught a lot of. Tad Maisie, the guy who makes Crush It Gel, just said he's been catching a lot of big trout on the Holy Jolly.
Holy Jolie.
Holy Jolie.
Okay. That's named after a kid named Joel Masson.
Ah, okay.
Holy Jolie. Yeah, that's a color that they were requesting, and they've been big supporters for years. So when we made it, we named it after them. So.
And also, Tad Maisie likes to use the spanker jig head, which is like a Damiki rig that the bass fishermen use for their forward-facing sonar. It kind of makes it like drift down rather than just fall straight.
Sure. Okay.
And that's also why Tad said he liked why Lloyd Landry said he likes to use such a small jig head underneath a popping cork. So it just kind of.
When you're using a cork, you want that bait to kind of flutter down. What you're trying to mimic really is a shrimp. So that's the key. Louisiana is so known for corks. This is our little cork. It's that sound when you're popping it. You're trying to make it sound like a shrimp skipping on top of the water. It's really, for the most part, it has nothing to do with keeping it up the water column or any of that stuff. It's purely for the sound. So a fish will hear that, and then it starts looking for the bait. And what they think they're hearing is a shrimp skipping out the water.
Okay.
Or like a speckled trout sucking a shrimp off the surface, which if you've ever been on some lights at night and they got little shrimp, you can, when speckled trout hit on the light, it sounds like a suction. They actually suck it. It's a very distinct sound.
Boy, that's like freshwater trout. I've actually seen them do that, come up and just very lightly open up their mouth and pull something on the top of the water underneath, like usually it's a fly or something,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And Rick Bailey, who's a good friend of mine, he said that shrimp Creole works the best for him. Xavier Madison said, I'm a beginner. Can you guys give me a technique to catch specks? I purchased lots of matrix yesterday. I went to point in Slidell and fished the bridges, caught nothing.
Yeah, you definitely, I could sit here and talk. You can only learn so much through talking. If you're trying to kind of see how we do it on the bridges, go to our YouTube channel and just type in Dockside TV. And that way I'll be explaining it, but also you can visually see what I'm doing. And visually seeing it really helps out a lot, And if I'm fishing a new area that I've never been to, and a guy says, hey, go to this concrete underwater structure, they got fish there, and I show up and I'm the only boat there and I'm not catching anything, I start second guessing myself. Am I in the right area? Blah, blah, blah. If I go and I can watch a boat or a person, an angler, and visually see what he's doing, I can mimic that very easily. It's just a monkey see, monkey do. So if I go to a foreign area and watch somebody like you that's walleye fish, which I have very minimal experience with that, if I see what you're doing, I could slide close to you or mimic what you're doing and probably pick up a few, But if you just told me what to do, it's only going to be so effective. I got to see it,
I guarantee with your knowledge of how to work a swim bait, you could clean up on walleyes.
Yeah, I would imagine
you just have to know a little bit about where they're at.
It'd be a pretty easy transition probably because they seem to be very similar fish, Where I would struggle is this gin clear water these anglers are fishing and drop shotting for smallmouth bass and using live scopes and all this stuff. We're not very technological here in Louisiana, and
you don't have to be.
No, we do a lot of power fishing around here, covering a lot of water. We don't do a lot of 20, 40 foot of water and gin clear water where we have to be real finesse.
Well, the biggest thing about gin clear water is you have to be able to cast a country mile, and you have to know to keep your bail open when that lure is falling, because it'll fall straight if you keep your bail open. If not, it's going to pendulum back towards the boat.
That's a great point. I mean, what we do on those bridges a lot, that's a very good tip or technique. So when I cast, I want that bait free falling straight down to where it hit the surface of the water. I don't want it pendulum back to the boat, like you said, because you're pulling it out the strike zone. So
Yes.
when it hits the water, I want enough slack to where it's falling straight down. And as it goes down, I'm slowly reeling the slack in case I get bumped on the way down. I can be aware of it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. You have to have like almost positive control. You have to kind of follow it down, but at the same time, yes, you want it to.
Exactly.
Yes,
That's exactly
that's a good
right.
point.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's where the art form comes in, because you have to have a good rod, good line, and you have to know what a bite feels like.
That's right.
And because if you have positive control, it's going to pendulum back. So you have to. I do all kinds of things to get that to happen.
No, you're right. You're like leaning forward and feeding the rod tip down. That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly what you do out here. So where we fish here in Louisiana, there's very few areas and anglers that fish this deep water like we do. This isn't very common in Louisiana. That's why a lot of very good fishermen and knowledge fishermen, they say Lake Pontchartrain's the hardest place in the state. It's really just because a lot of stuff we fish is very deep meaning like 10 to 25 foot, which is deep for Louisiana. And fishing a 12, 15 foot bridge.
Yeah.
And
It's very deep.
It's deep, and then you're dealing with tide and waves, so it's complicated. It's a heck of a lot harder than throwing a cork and popping it and watching it go under.
Yes. And Tad Mazie just brought up a good point. He said he uses live scope, and he likes to use it to see how the bait is working.
Yeah, I don't have any knowledge of that. I would like to be taught how to use live scope, but that's a foreign language to me.
Yeah, but that is what I've seen people do that, that they could care less where the fish are, but it's not really they don't care, but they care more about where the bait's at.
Where the bait's at? Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Even when I'm fishing the marsh, I look for moving water, then I look for bait.
Right. And that's like when we're out on the bridge and stuff, we're looking for bait too. This time of year when it's cold, one of the main things we look for is loons, those birds that swoop underwater. They only come here in the wintertime. That's a winter bird. So when we're going up and down the bridge, 9 out of 10 times, if we're in a productive area, those loons are swimming around with us. That's important. And then we also we don't necessarily need seagulls diving, but if we just see seagulls in the area hovering around, that also means there's shrimp around. The loons aren't feeding on shrimp. They're feeding on some type of finfish, where the seagulls are looking for shrimp.
When I was fishing with Lloyd Landry, I saw one of the coolest things I've ever seen. There must have been 50 seagulls diving. And there was also an egret flying around, furiously looking for a place he could land to feed on these shrimp.
Oh, yeah?
I've never seen that before. I don't know. I like birds a lot.
Yeah, where Lloyd fishes, they deal with a lot of bird fishing. We get it a little bit here, but it's not our primary thing. Down in the southern parishes of Louisiana, I mean, you can fish birds almost year round. They see it a lot.
And Rick Bailey said he fished too large today, and he had a two-man limit at 8:05 a.m. and shrimp Creole was what they were catching them on.
You got a lot of shrimp Creole followers. I see that.
Yeah.
That is one of our top sellers, but We got so much stuff nowadays. This company, we started with 3 colors, and that's it. It was Midnight Mullet, Shrimp Creole, and Lemonhead. And
Lemonhead.
now and you probably don't even know this. We have over 200 items on our website, from
Wow, 200.
sunglasses to fluorocarbon, monofilament, corks, jig heads, top waters, jerk baits, you name it. Pretty much anything you need, from the fishing rod all the way to the hook, we have it.
I'd like to ask you this: that stud of a trout that you have on your profile picture on Facebook. This thing's probably 30 inches long, this big around. How did you catch that?
Well, first of all, it looks probably 30 inches long. We're really good at taking good quality pictures, but it was a really nice one. And this time, once we hit like the first week of November, we catch trout close to that size almost every day we go out. Those 3 to 5 pounders, which is going to be like 20 to 24-inch trout. That's super common this time of year for us. From November all the way through like May 1st, we see a lot of those. But that particular fish, if you're fishing the bridges and you want to put yourself in the opportunity to catch the biggest one, 9 out of 10 times you want to be fishing the Highway 11 bridge. That's the old car bridge that passes next to the train trestle. The train trestle gets a lot of 20-inch fish, 18-inch fish, but 80% of my really big ones in my lifetime has always come from that car bridge. I don't know why. That's just the way it is.
Tad Mazie just offered. He said he'd be happy to show you some stuff about using FFS. Yeah, it's forward.
A live scope.
Yeah, for specks.
Yeah, I wonder where it would really come into play over here. Probably some deeper reefs would really work. We have a lot of artificial reefs out there, and I've actually been fishing some of the reefs right here by the bridge. So the twin span got knocked down with Hurricane Katrina back in 2005.
Yes.
And they pulled the bridge up, which I wish I would have just left it and turned it into a fishing pier or something, but they pulled it up. But at least a lot of the rubble that they pulled up, they made us 2 reefs. And those reefs really haven't been good for 20 years. And then all of a sudden this year, they started producing some pretty nice trout. Actually, that trout that you were talking about, that might have came off the reef. I'm not sure. The reef is right next to the Highway 11 bridge. So those 2 spots have been producing the biggest fish that I know of in the estuary right now are on Highway 11 and that reef.
And you just to catch okay. Do you fish for bigger trout differently than you would fish for say schoolies?
Yeah, especially the easiest way for me to explain that is when you're fishing like the trestle, and most people that's been to Lake Pontchartrain has fished a trestle. It's pretty known to not throw under the bridge on the trestle. The trestle used to be a wooden bridge back in the 50s. Yeah. And they built the concrete bridge. It's over it, and they left a lot of the wooden pilings there. So if you throw underneath the trestle, you're going to go through 1,000 jig heads. Is there fish underneath there? Would that be a great cast to make? Yeah, but it's not worth losing a jig head every other cast, right?
Sure.
So the trestle, most people just throw at the bridge and bring it out with the current. The Highway 11 bridge and other bridges we can go over, but the Highway 11 bridge with the big ones, those big trout are actually hiding in between the 4 pilings that support the bridge. So the 4 pilings go in a line like this, and the fish are actually in the holes. So you have to throw the lure under the bridge, and you have to make an exact cast and like put it in a hula hoop every time. That way you can run the lure right down the 4 bridge pilings. If you're off 3-4 feet, those bigger trout do not want to exert the energy to shoot out from that gap in the bridge there. You want to rub the poles right down it, and that's how you entice those bigger trout to hit. And the bigger trout are always going to try to separate themselves from the 15 and 18 inchers for the most part. So if you're in a spot catching 16 inchers one after the other, it is very rare you're going to miraculously catch a 25 incher. The 25 inchers go to other places. They want to pull away and exclude themselves. They don't want to be competing with all of those smaller fish for food. They're lazy and they could get away from it, you know.
Well, those are the alphas, the big bullies.
That's right. That's
They
right.
probably come in there and chase. I know I've seen big bass come in and chase out the smaller bass before.
Right. So when I'm on an area like the trestle has been this fall, and it's really good, and it's got a lot of 17 to 19 inch fish, I'm always looking for something nearby that's different. And if it might take me 20 different spots to try to find it, but eventually I'll find that second class of fish, something a little bit bigger, a little bit better. And you can look at it. It's just an entirely different class of fish. But you might go from catching 20 a day to 5 a day. You know, if you're looking for the big ones, you can't be looking to catch 50 of them. You know, they're going to be a lot less likely to catch. For instance, the very south end of the trestle produces a lot of 18 to 20 inch trout. And right where it hits land on the south shore of the trestle, if you look in the distance south, there's these old abandoned wooden pylons that barely stick up out the water. I don't even know what they were there for. They've been there since as long as I can remember. Every once in a while in the wintertime, I'll go make a lap around them pylons and throw in there. I might only catch 4 or 5, but they are considerably bigger than the ones on the trestle. And I'm just the type, I do this so often, I'm always trying to find the biggest fish in the lake, you know, just like a trophy deer hunter, you know. Sure. I'm not going to sit there and shoot the does the whole time. I want to shoot the biggest buck that's around.
So are big trout, are they loners? Tad Maisie just brought up that.
I wouldn't say they're loners like bass sitting on a bed, but they are loners where they'll school up in smaller schools with fish more their size rather than bigger schools with a bunch of 14 inchers, you know. Have I caught 25 inch trout in the midst of catching 13 inchers one after the other? I have. It's rare. I have. Where I do that more often than not, though, is when I'm fishing the panhandle of Florida. I go to Florida a lot, and I have seen it there a couple of times. I've caught 7 or 8 13 inchers in a row.
We're back.
7 or 8 13 inches in a row when I'm fishing grass beds on the panhandle of Florida. And then, boom, the next fish is 26, 27 inches. It's very strange. I don't see that here in Louisiana very often, if at all. But, you know, if you're looking for the bigger trout, you just – what I like to do – if I go out catching fish and I'm catching several, get to about 10 if I'm fishing by myself, and then you got enough to bring home and clean, and then start looking around at some just off the wall stuff. You never know where you might find a bigger fish.
Chaz, can you hear me?
I got you. Yeah, you froze up for a minute. I just kept talking.
Absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Just But anyways, sorry about that. All I can do is apologize.
You're good. I kept talking.
Anyways, we were talking. Thank you. So in the wintertime, do you downsize?
No, not necessarily. Not really. No. I'll throw the 4-inch bait more in the winter than in the summer for sure. Let me grab that. So we make one called the Mega Matrix, and it's every color we carry in the regular Matrix. It's the exact same lure. It's just stretched out to 4 inches, 4 1/4 or so. But when you use this, you want to use a 4/0 hook. Don't use our regular golden
Okay.
3/0. That's too. It'll work, but that's too small of a hook. You want to use a 4/0. And this is the time of year that I break these out, the 4-inch ones. If you're on a bunch of
Okay.
18 to 20 inchers, I recommend using the 4-inch lure. If you're catching a lot
Okay.
of 12 to 17 inchers, just stay with the 3-inch lure, the regular matrix shad. But if you're catching a lot of big ones, man, this lure is one of my favorite things that we have. It's a little bit more durable too. It's got more plastic, so they don't tear up. These things are awesome. I've caught a lot of big trout on them. I got a lot of videos coming out using those 4-inch ones.
Tad Maisie wants to know if you ever tried using scent on your lures.
I don't speckled trout are like 90% visual predators, and that's mainly like what the lure's made for, although it catches everything. I've never got into the way scents work and all of that, so I don't have a lot of knowledge on scents, so I've never really messed with it. Having scent on a lure certainly isn't going to hurt anything, but if you're catching, I'll tell you, fish that are very scent oriented, flounder, big time scent oriented fish, flounder. So if you're catching some flounder and you want to catch more, feel free to put a little tip of the shrimp on there, maybe some of that gel that they make now that gives it a little stink, big time. Little puppy drum, very scent oriented. Croakers, white trout, tremendously scent oriented fish. A great product that people use now is that fish bites thing. I don't know if you've ever seen those.
Looks like bubble gum, yeah.
Yeah, and it don't even stink really, but whatever scent that is, that stuff really works. And that's going to be for like your white trout and croakers, channel mullet, ground mullet, whatever you call it. Pompano. Yeah, I love
in Florida. Yeah.
I love pompano fishing. You just sit back on the beach, throw a fish bite out, and drink a beer, and look for the pole to bend over.
Yep, that's pompano fishing, and then you catch something 12 inches long. Oh, that's a big one.
That's a good eating fish, though.
It is. One thing I've caught a lot of on your lures are redfish.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. So we do two different styles of red fishing, or I do personally. In the summertime, I almost exclusively sight fish red. So here in Louisiana is a place that very few other states have this. And with all of the marsh we have, we call them duck ponds. That's whenever the 5 and 6 foot bayous feed into these 12-inch to 1.5 foot flats. And if you find the ones with the right grass, it'll make the water emerald gin clear. It looks like the Bahamas. But you got to find the right grass that sponges out the sediment and makes it crystal clear. And that's really good anywhere from May 1st all the way through November 1st. We do a lot of that. And that's just kind of like hunting. You put the trolling motor almost on high speed, and you don't even cast until you see one of them big orange suckers floating over the pond, and then you throw on them. If it's real grassy, we'll use something weedless like our matrix crawfish. But if it's not terribly grassy, just this on a 1/4 ounce jig head's fine. And then in the wintertime, if it's a warm winter day like we had today, I like to chase the big speckled trout. If we get a big cold front that blows all of the water out, I like to fish redfish deep in the marsh, and we try to find like 6 to 10 foot canals. And what happens is when all of the water gets blown out after a huge Arctic front, it sucks all the reds out them duck ponds and stuff that I'm talking about, and it'll force them into the main canal. And that is one fish that I've seen it so many times. It's incredible. When you find the right canal, when the water's really gone and cold, you can make the same cast over and over and catch 30 to 60 redfish without even, not only moving the boat, not even moving where your cast is being made. It's incredible how those redfish will literally pile up on top of each other. It's amazing.
That does sound amazing. I've heard about that so many times.
Yeah, it's almost like a redfish jubilee. It has not, the water has not blown out here enough this winter yet for me to do it. One day it blew out pretty good, and I went and looked around a little, but I caught 7 reds. But when you're doing this and it is redfish jubilee time, you cover a lot of water, you fish real fast. When you catch one red, you better stop that boat because they're never by themselves. You might not get a bite for 2 hours, and you finally catch a 20-inch red. He is not by himself. He is with a school of fish.
That's awesome. Tad wants to say that the stuff he used, which is crusted gel, his salty crack, he can make the lure smell like a Menhaden.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt for sure. I just, from experience and the knowledge, speckled trout are very visual feeders. So it's not like you're going to go from catching one fish every 20 minutes, speckled trout, one fish every 20 minutes and put some of that gel on the lure and start catching one every 30 seconds. That's just not going to happen. Now, redfish, flounder, white trout, croaker, very more scent-oriented fish. Sure, that scent really comes into play.
Geraldine Lusher, I'm pretty sure that's Keith Lusher. I think you probably know him.
Uh-huh.
He writes for the Sportsman. He said that jubilee also happens with bass as well.
He's absolutely right, and it just depends on where you're fishing. I know he fishes a lot of Lacombe. I'm pretty sure that where it doesn't have as many reds, and it's a lot of bass. So when you get that water sucked out like that, you find the right canal, those bass will be on top of each other, and you catch them one after the other. It's really fun when you have both and you're catching the reds and the bass.
That would be fun. I've always heard about that. I have caught reds and bass on the same day, but I've never caught them in the same exact spot. That would be fun because the marsh bass, guys, if you've never experienced that, man, a 16-inch fish might weigh 3.5 pounds.
Yeah, they're built from top to bottom.
Well, they sit there and they just gorge themselves on those shrimp all day, and they just get fat. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we just don't, for whatever reason, they just kind of stunt at like 3 pounds, but you'll catch a gazillion 2-pound chunkers, you know what I mean?
And they're so healthy and they're so fat. It's a lot of fun.
What makes it awesome is just how you can catch 50 to 100 in a day. And there's just not many places in the country where you can do that,
I tell people that all the time. I came down here and saw how many fish you guys were taking, and I got worried, but this is not the North, guys.
It's a totally different situation because angler taking bass out, it's not gonna. It's irrelevant because every time we get a big tropical storm or a hurricane, which we get every year now, that's wiping them out, and then they just replenish. Now, if we have a real salty drought year and multiple hurricanes, places I catch 40, 50 bass in the winter, there might not be a bass in there. But something will take its place. The redfish or the speckled trout will get in those bayous.
It's just this area. It took me a long time to really wrap my head around this, being from the North, just how many fish there are here. It's staggering.
Yeah, I tell you, 30 years ago was a hell of a lot better. I can tell you that.
I'm sure it was.
It's still really good, Look, they changed the limits for the first time since 1994 this year on speckled trout and redfish, which is probably needed to be changed 6, 7, 8 years ago. But, we'll see if it does anything or helps. But I've personally seen a tremendous decline in the fishing in the last 15 years. But we still have the best fishing arguably in the country. So,
I couldn't believe it when I first started experiencing it, from the shore, and I'm catching limits of redfish and specks. That's wow.
Yeah, there's not many places you can do that.
And, you have to know what you're doing. And it took me a while to really learn how to fish the marsh, but it's different, but it's not terribly different than what I did up north. When I fished for bass and walleyes and up there, redfish, specks,
Yeah. Well, in today's world with the technology, there's so many great articles and YouTube videos. And like when I'm going to a foreign area or something, I just turn on the computer and start reading or watching videos. You can learn so much, you know?
Yeah, they'll even show you where they're fishing. Okay, I recognize that tree.
Yeah. If they spoon feed it to you that easy, it's take it to your advantage, you know?
Absolutely, man. But also one thing I tell people, most guys, I can tell them exactly how to catch fish. It doesn't mean they're going to catch them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You still got to put the time in and become a quality angler, you know?
That's what I tell people, man. You'll never, even though I do a podcast and I do all kinds of videos, you're never going to learn how to fish sitting on your couch, man. You got to get out there and you got to spend time on the water. Like you fish usually 3-4 times a week, don't you?
For what am I, 42? Almost 30 years I've been doing it, and I still learn something new often, you know?
Often,
I
yes.
wouldn't say every day, but often I learn something new where I'm like, holy cow, I didn't even know that existed, you know? Or I'll find a new spot, or I'll see the fish do something that I've never seen them do before, you know? Very, very common. I learned something new, and I've been doing this whatever 30 years times three is, you know, that's how many fishing trips I've made in a lifetime.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Well, it's 35 after the hour. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to make?
Just if anybody's watching this and they want to get more of a in-depth knowledge on everything we discussed, just our Dockside TV on YouTube's pretty informative stuff. And what we try to do is show you guys how to fish with every type of item that we manufacture. Not everything's not made for one situation, you know. So we make a crawfish, for instance. You're not going to want to put that on a jig head and go jig the bottom on an oil rig for speckled trout with that. It's just not the right situation. And just like the matrix shed that everybody knows is for, you're not going to want to go get in a completely grassed over pond that's got bass and redfish in it and throw this on an open face jig head. You're going to be catching a pound of salad every cast. So we go over when to throw what. We got top water baits, when to use that. We have little shrimp. This is made by H&H, but we carry these on our website. I personally like this under a cork better than the Matrix. But the Matrix with a light jig head, like Lloyd was saying, it works perfectly fine. I like the little shrimp imitations better because, like I said, that's what you're mimicking is the sound of a shrimp skipping around, you know. So we go over every situation, time of the year, and that's the main thing. 4 times of the year: spring, summer, fall, winter. They're completely different, and you got to learn how to fish those 4 things. If you learn how to fish the 4 seasons, you can be an avid angler and do very well throughout the entire year.
Wow. Wow, we've really gone over a lot of things tonight, man. This has been a good podcast. I'd like to thank you, Chaz. I know that you're a very busy man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to our viewers here on the Let's Talk Fishing podcast.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for coming on once again. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. I really had a lot of people tuning in tonight, and thank each and every one of you guys. You know what, guys? I'm going fishing on Saturday. I don't get to fish 3 or 4 times a week, but I'm going this weekend to get back to my roots and do some shore fishing. You know, that's how I started fishing up in Illinois, walking the smallmouth bass creeks up there when I was a young boy. But I'm going to go do that, see if the fish have come in from the Gulf yet because of this cold front. I cannot wait. But guys, get out there and fish. You only get to do this life once. Have some fun. You're not going to sit there and think in your last days about how much fun you had watching television. I just hate that. Man, get out there and be more like Chaz, man. Get out there and fish 3-4 times a week. But thank you very much. Remember, guys, matrixshad.com, matrixshad.com. Make great stocking stuffers.
Yep, for sure.
Kenneth Richard just said, what was the scent that Chaz mentioned? You might be talking about Tad.
Yeah, he's the one to ask.
The guy's name is Tad Mazie. He makes
I,
Russet gel.
yeah, what I said, I'm not very knowledgeable on scents. We don't use them too often around here.
Yeah. Gary Bourne, I'm going to the Highway 1 right by Grand Isle. And Billy Blocker, last thing I'm going to take. Hey, bro, Chad knows his baits work. I think he meant Chaz.
I know Billy well.
Okay, that's cool. And man, thanks again. Um, I'm going to end the podcast with that. Chad, stick around. I'd like to talk to you for 2 minutes afterwards.
Okay, man.
And thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you, and every one of you that commented. That makes the podcast so much better. Thank you for commenting.